Welcome to Living with Moxie, where Shefali Burns and Donna Martouche, authors, entrepreneurs, and leaders in the world of business, education, and coaching, share ideas, resources, and strategies from the hosts and their guests to provide you with the leverage you require to meet and exceed your business and personal goals. Join us for unique insights from outstanding achievers in business, relationships, health, finances, and living as they share strategies, wisdom, and lessons learned on the path to extraordinary living. Are you ready to live with Moxie?
Hey everybody, it's Donna and Shefali here. Welcome to tonight's show. We're so excited to have you. Thank you so much for joining us, Shefali. Nice to have you be here with you again. We were together yesterday too, right?
We were, absolutely. This is so much fun. And, today I was thinking about what we were going to talk about. And I know it's around the power of your thoughts and the words that we use, right? And we talked a little bit about that yesterday on our show together, right? We talked about the words that we use, the feelings, emotions, all that stuff, and how they can really affect us. So, are we really paying attention to our thoughts and the words that we're using throughout our day? And how can we use those words or different words to our advantage, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I have totally learned over time that words are very powerful and they impact even our beliefs as we're growing up. Some of the things that we say and we don't even think about that have become that we wind up creating as a reality. So things like birds of a feather flock together, or anything worth having you have to work hard for, or no pain, no gain, like some of these things that become sayings that we say, and yet we also have sayings that mean the exact opposite of those that we're brought up hearing, and there's some that we cling to and some that we don't, but they tend to really impact our perceptions and our choices and our decisions throughout our life, whether we consciously realize it or not. It's incredible how much power they have over us and what we create each and every moment.
And the thing is, like, there are so many thoughts and words that are running, in our heads all the time that sometimes we don't even know what we're saying and what we're thinking. I mean, it's just, it's just automatic, right? Because we're so programmed to say those things because we're hearing them also in the media and everywhere else. So, like, it's just funny. I've started to consciously choose some words, and I'm still finding some words that creep up, and it's like, oh, I'm still saying that. I thought I changed that word. I thought I stopped saying that. But I'm aware, right? So I can catch it. But what do you do? Like, how do you tell people? How do you suggest to them that they start how to be aware of those thoughts? Those words that they're using every day, all the time.
It's sort of interesting. I mean, there's multiple ways that I do it depending on which group of people that I'm working with. But, so for example, I've been in the public school system for 20 years. And when I hear kids talk, you sometimes hear them say something like, oh, I'm just really bad at math. There's nothing I could, that's just how it is. And you sort of catch that and you go, really, is that true for you? And then they may actually think about it and go, no, actually, it's just something like my dad said once or a teacher said once, and they bought it as true. And you go, wow. And when they actually shift that thought, those words, they can suddenly start excelling in a place where they never even thought it was possible. So in each conversation, and depending on who you're working with, is very different. But even, years ago, and we talked about the Pygmalion effect in psychology, that what people believe could happen is what you'll create. What your expectations are of somebody that you're working with is you can't actually allow more than that to even show up. So it's pretty powerful, and I think it changes with each and every interaction that I have because there's an energy to each person in each relationship and every situation. So I can't give you a clear-cut answer, but I can tell you that that just like a recent example is something as simple as saying, okay, somebody asked yesterday, I think it was when we were on the phone, somebody said, I'm sorry, I can't. It went out of my mind. Shefali, do you have one off the top of your head that you can think of? I really apologize.
Well, I mean, like when we were talking on the show yesterday, even I had said but and should, and it's like, oh, but those are words. I just said it again. But those those are words that I have taken out of my vocabulary because I don't like the word should. It puts this expectation and pressure that I have to do something. And for me, it's about and. So when I say but, it's like it kind of cuts off the energy. So, those are two examples that I'm still working with, obviously, but
Yeah.
I guess I say that a lot,
I
and it's about being aware though, right? So I'm just going to
yeah.
jump in really quick and say one little exercise that people can do is, take a few days and just write down whatever words you're aware of and just write them down. The words you say all the time, just write them down. Doesn't
Mhm.
have to be anything formal. And then afterwards, take a look at them and see, what am I really saying all the time?
Yeah, absolutely. I in one of the books that I contributed to that came out not too long ago, it was on the bestseller list. It was Transformation, Find Your Wings. I contributed a chapter called Change Your Thoughts and Create Your Life, right? Because people say
Hmm.
change your thoughts and you can change your life, but I have found that words are actually generative and creative, and they can create what's going to show up for you. And I can give you examples where you really probably remember that from when you were a kid, where you would literally say, "Oh, I would love to hear from, Aunt Donna," and all of a sudden the phone rings and that's who's on the phone, and
Yes.
you go, "Huh, what a coincidence," you would often call it. But is it really a coincidence? Is it a coincidence that at 15 years old I said I want to own and run publishing company, and then later when I was in my, you know, 40s, I actually wound up creating a publishing company, and then again recently creating a publishing company and being part of writing and being an author. Those are thoughts that I had years ago that are coming into fruition now. And it's funny because when you write down your targets or your goals, or you keep a journal and you go back and you look and you see a lot of the thoughts that you actually have written down do and will show up, and that's an incredible thing to realize, because even someone like Brian Tracy, who's incredibly successful and does a lot of talking at Success Summits, will turn around and say to you that once you write it down, there's a psychoneuromotor activity
Hmm.
that actually occurs that creates this connection that makes it start, you almost start putting it into action subconsciously. But with that aside, our words also are reflective of our beliefs. So what you said is a great activity, and I often will tell myself, I mean, I've done it myself, and I've had clients do it. Write down your beliefs, or write down what you think your beliefs are around a specific topic, and you'll even find out that sometimes you have opposite beliefs that make you stay stuck in a spot, and there's no way for you to get out of it because well, there is a way for you to get out of it, but not if you're going to hold on to both of those beliefs. You have to start asking, like, well, which one of these statements or language components am I using that are really true for me, so that you could let go of one. I think I'm kind of mixing. I don't want to confuse anybody, so go from there.
Yeah, and the thing is with words and thoughts and even beliefs, I think the biggest thing is that we're not aware. People are not aware because they're not conscious, right? And aware just means, paying attention, right? Paying attention to your thoughts.
Hmm.
And, more often than not, we're not paying attention. We're paying attention to something else, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the more that we become aware of what we are saying and what we're thinking and what words we are using, then we have a chance to change those words, or bring in. For me, I don't like to just change something. I like to bring in something first that is a stronger vibration, more positive, makes me feel better, and then I find the other stuff that I want to get rid of, let go of, will slowly start to go with more ease, right? So I always like to bring in what more positive words can I say, especially, and this is a big one, is the stuff that we tell ourselves, right?
Hmm.
We're constantly having a conversation with ourselves, and what kinds of words are we using for ourselves? And sometimes the words we use with ourselves, we would never say those things to anybody else, and that is what is so sad, is that we treat other people better than we do ourselves.
Hmm. Well, let's just think about, some of the just a couple hours ago, I was working with a client who said, this job is killing me. This is going to be the death of me.
Mhm.
This is going to, those are
Mhm.
words that actually start to hold and create things like illness and things like that we actually wind up putting into place, and we don't even realize, because that's what you're creating. So becoming conscious of those things, and it could be related to, to health, to money, to relationships, to anything. If you believe a relationship can only go so far, it can't exceed whatever you believe. You're right.
Yes.
Right? So,
Yep.
so if you'd like to start believing something or creating something else, you need to start practicing that thought so that it can really be yours and you can own it. And that starts, with language and paying attention to what you're thinking.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I think we all need to start paying attention to and start working with is that being more aware, being more conscious, paying attention to what really matters. And right now, honestly, it's about us. It really is about us. Once we find out what's going on with us, then we can start to make changes and create a better reality for ourselves. I say better, but a new reality for ourselves, a more conscious reality, right? Because otherwise, it's just automatic and sometimes haphazard, and we wonder why are things this way and why is it not going the way I want? It's like, well, are you aware of how you're contributing to your life by your thoughts and words?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I can say, I just to give somebody a clear idea, one of the things that when we're talking to people about creating your life, you know me, I'm big on saying, I want you to write this down. I want you to write down what it is that you'd like to create because I want them to both make that psychological, neurological connection, but I also want them to constantly review it and make it very real and very alive and active in their mind because what starts to happen is the more you have the thought active in your mind, whether you recognize it or not, you begin to start taking actions to create what it is that you're making present and forefront in your mind. So that whether you recognize it or not, eventually you go, oh wow, look at that! I actually made progress in that area. I'm closer than I thought. And if you really write it down, and they say really only 3% of the people in the world who are really successful do this, and those are the 3% of the people who seem to have the majority of the money in the world, actually will write down their goals, and they'll be very clear and specific. It's not, you and I have talked about this. It'll be sort of like, it's not about I want to be thin. It's about I would love to have a health, or this, that, and you're very specific and very clear, and then you think about it. And now we're going to go to break, and we'll talk more about thoughts after.
Yes, we'll be back in just a moment here on OMTimes Radio.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Spiritual, metaphysical, green living, psychic, alternative healing, life coaching. Do any of these or similar terms apply to your business or cause? If so, you are in a niche market with a very specific audience. Conscious Gate PR is the world's leading conscious public relations agency. With a global reach of over 4 million and growing, we offer comprehensive media campaigns to our targeted market. Learn more at ConsciousGatesPR.com. Conscious marketing for conscious minds.
Hi, this is Sylvia Henderson, intuitive life coach and energy healer. Are you ready to elevate and rise way above your normal? Be sure to listen to my show, Intuitive Transformations, on OMTimes Radio, Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. Get the inspiration you need to transform your life.
I left my heart in San Francisco.
Hi, this is Tony Bennett, and I'm a volunteer for Lifebeat. The music industry fights AIDS. We all know that there are some new medications for people with AIDS, but there is still no cure. This is why I personally volunteer for Lifebeat. The AIDS crisis is not over, and people need help. Volunteer for your local AIDS organization. They need you.
Everyone, we are back on OMTimes Radio. We are Shefali Burns and Donna Martouche, and then today we are talking about what are we talking about? The power of your thoughts on Living with Moxie. So Donna, we were just talking about words and thoughts, and the difference between just saying them and actually writing them down, and the power of writing down your thoughts, writing down your goals. And so it could be your thoughts, it could be your goals. And, like I tell my clients, I suggest to my clients to write down gratitude in a gratitude journal. Instead of just saying it, instead of just feeling it, I ask them to write it down because it does make a bigger difference, it becomes more concrete, and they can
Mm-hmm.
actually see it strongly and feel it. And it just, like you said, it changes the way they start to see things and experience things once they've had it written down, right?
Yeah. And one of the things you asked me before is, like where, how do I address it or where do I see it? And I can tell you one of the ways I often notice when I'm in conversations with people is how they refer to themselves. I hear people say, I'm not really good at that, or I'd love to do that, but,
Mm-hmm.
or, I would have done this and couldn't, or something along those lines, because you can see the decisions that they've made about themselves and what's possible. And once you're sort of in that decision, you sort of don't leave any room for new possibilities. We talk about, I think every person who's successful talks about questions as being keys and staying in question and always looking for what else is possible kind of situation. But whether it's Anthony Robbins who says, a question is your key, asking effective questions can get you where you want to go. Once you say something like, I'm not good with money, or I can't do business, or, getting through this illness is going to be hard, or making my first million is going to be tough. You create a situation where you can't have it any other way because you've already made a decision there. Does that make sense?
It does, and that's, I think, what people, that's why they don't understand how much power it really is in those words. And so I try to be careful with my words because I know it's affecting the energy and the future. And then my family laughs at me. It's like, no, don't say that. I'll tell them not to say certain things, like, don't say that. Because it's like, I'm not like tempting fate, but I know that the words have power and energy, and they start to shift and change my reality. And so some of the words, that I like to use are, are positive, right? They're empowering and they're inspiring. And sometimes I will definitely use them when I'm working with clients, but how often do we use them with ourselves? And that's kind of like what you're talking about right now, is we limit ourselves with the words and thoughts that we're using. Sometimes, people say that something's impossible. Well, if you say it's impossible, and if you say it's enough times, then absolutely it will be impossible. I actually say absolutely a lot. So it's like I noticed that, and that's the thing, is like once you start recognizing the words and how much of a big impact they can have on you, then you'll start to be consciously creating a reality. And that's what I really want for people to understand, is that you can create whatever it is that you choose. There are some things you have to do. And part of that is changing your vocabulary, changing your language, watching what you're saying and feeling, and, writing it down. I think that, I think this is a sticking point for me, Donna, because I tend not to write down certain things because I think it's going to stick.
Mm-hmm.
And then I won't be able to change it. And I know that's not true, right? I mean, I know
Right.
that, but I still worry about, as soon as I write it down, it's like it's set in stone, it's like, and, in this day and age, nothing is. You can erase everything, right? So what is that, do you think? And I wonder if other people have that too.
I think that is something that people have, is they do feel like it makes something more permanent, and it isn't actually. I did Brian Tracy did a success summit for people who were at the 10% of a company that I had been doing some work with at some point in time, and he had said that when you write something down, you write it down and you write your targets and you do it very clear. Same thing, Napoleon Hill, all the things that all the very successful people will say. And he said, and you put a deadline to it, 3 months, 6 months, you put a literal date. And he said, and then when you get to that date, you'll notice that either on or about that date, maybe sometimes even literally on the morning of that day, you actually will reach that goal. But if you don't reach the goal, you just adjust it. It's really not that, you just adjust it. It's just a matter of crossing it out and adjusting it. It's not that you're letting go of the goal. So it isn't permanent, and the only thing that becomes permanent is the actions that you don't take. But the actions that you take every day towards your goal, that is something that is a choice in each moment. So so the truth of the matter is, what we've done before or what we've said before is irrelevant. What we choose right now in this present moment, that's creating our now and our future, is what's relevant. And future intent should determine your present thoughts and actions right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really great to get an idea of what it is that to get really clear on what you'd like your future to be like and say, okay, well, if I'm going to be the person who's made $1 billion by the time I'm this, or this, what would someone who is doing that be saying and doing today? Because I need my actions and my thoughts to match that. I don't think someone like Derek Jeter or Warren Buffett or anybody along those lines have ever said, I can't do it. As a matter of fact, it was interesting because I watched, and I think you and I talked about this once before, I watched Derek Jeter, who's a baseball player for the Yankees. I watched him in an interview once, and somebody said to him, don't you get nervous when you're up to bat? You sit there and like you think, what if I miss? It's the game is at a clinch, and blah whatever, and you could be tied, and there's so much pressure. And he looked at her, and I was so grateful that I actually saw it on the news, like on the screen, because his face was sort of baffled by the question. And he said, I would never think that kind of thought. I'd just think, I wonder how far I'm going to hit it today. Like the idea of missing the ball or striking out does not cross his mind. The idea of not reaching the target doesn't cross his mind. So, and Warren Buffett said the same thing. Somebody said, he has that millionaires club, right? And in order to be in the millionaires club, you also have to be a philanthropist. So there's multiple things that you have to do to be in it. And in the millionaires club meeting one day, somebody said to him, in an interview, what do you guys do? Do you guys ever talk about your failures? And he kind of giggled and he said, there's no such thing as failure. A failure is the attempt that you made to get to where you want to go that gave you the information that you need to move in another direction. That's not failure.
Oh, that's a great quote, Donna. Repeat that again for people to hear.
I don't know if I can, but I'll try. He basically said, there is no failure. Failure is the steps that you made that gave you the information that let you know that you need to change the direction that you're going to get where you want to go, because that wasn't it, basically. So they don't sit there and talk about failure. They may say, I tried it this way, and that showed me that what I really needed to do was add this, and then I got it.
Yeah.
So
That's
it was
beautiful.
never
I
about
love
how
that.
much
And
you
that's
failed.
powerful.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But that's a training your thoughts. I mean, that's a whole, because so many people would choose, and in every moment, Anthony Robbins says, in every single moment, we get to make this decision about how we're going to perceive it and what meaning we're going to give something. And that meaning that we give this situation will literally mold our next future steps. So we could perceive it as failure, or we could perceive it as vital information that leads to success. Whichever meaning you decide to give it will create your future. So you have a choice, and that's why being aware of your thoughts becomes so powerful.
Oh,
right?
I'm just having a huge aha. It's like that is just brilliant, And and that's the thing. I was just thinking, a few minutes ago about, okay, let's say we're using these words, we're looking at our words, we're looking at our thoughts, and we're changing them to something more positive. How do you get to the point of being authentic instead of inauthentic? I can say I am this or that or something like that and not really feel it, right? Because I'm not there yet. So how do you not feel fake?
Yeah. There's a couple of techniques that we could actually do that could help people feel that way. But one of the first things is to get really clear on what it is, so one of the things Napoleon Hill would say is feel the emotion as though you already have what it is that you're asking for. You want that job, you want the promotion, you want to make, $500,000 by the time you read your, make second quarter or whatever that target is. And now you just sit in the idea of, oh my God, this has already happened, and you feel the energy. And once it feels like celebration and you feel like you have it and you could feel the gratitude, remember that emotion. And you could remember it by doing something like we did yesterday, that heart center. You could put your hand on your heart and give yourself a physical tapping. You could jump up and down and connect a physical body connection to it. But it starts to you feel that joy. And then when you think that thought, you say it to yourself in that state, and you will connect it with sort of a more positive emotion, physically, emotionally, and mentally. And it seems sort of silly, but if you listen to somebody like I'm sorry for bringing up the same people over and over again, but when you want to be someone who's making billions of dollars and creating significant impact in the world, you tend to read and write everything related to the people who are the mentors that could help you do that. And one of the things Anthony Robbins will say is he'll literally be on a run or doing his exercise, and he'll say to himself really loud, "I love my life. I love my," and he'll do it with joy, and appreciation and gratitude, and he'll scream it. He doesn't care. I mean, like, it doesn't matter, because it's the intensity, and eventually you resonate with it. So you can get yourself into the mindset first, and then you'll start to resonate with that energy. And it may feel fake at first, but it won't for long.
Right. Yeah, it won't for long, because you're also taking actions consistently on a regular basis to get you to where you want to be.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
And that's part of it. I mean, part of it is, everyone goes, oh, yeah, you think it's so simple. You change your thoughts, you create your life. You always have those naysayers who want to put something out there, and you go, the truth of the matter is, let's reframe that. Look at the people who are the most successful people in the world and watch the way they speak and write. Go read their autobiographies. Go read a book that they've written. Look at what they've done. There's something they all have in common in the way that they speak, the way that they stand when they're speaking in public, the way that their physiology is, their language, where they've decided to give their meaning, and giving meaning again. I mean, you get to choose. I worked with clients who have gone through divorce or tried to repair a marriage after something like an affair or something along those lines. And, the meaning that you give to the situation. So there was a psychologist I was working with who said, I could walk in and catch my wife cheating on me, and I could give that moment so much significance and say, oh my God, I have, I feel so betrayed, and relationships are terrible, and I never want to trust again. Or I can say, maybe not in that second I'm going to say it, but I can turn that into a, wow, I've really gained some clarity on what it is that I'm looking for in a relationship. And now I get to create one even better than this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because the meaning you give these moments will change your future.
Yeah.
Right?
And that again, and that's powerful. What kind of perspective are you having on each moment in your life, right? Especially those powerful moments, those life-changing moments. How are you giving the meaning? What is the meaning in them?
So right after these messages, we'll be right back. Looking forward to being with you.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Connect at omtimes.com. OMTimes, creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hello! Join us, Lisa Berry and Michelle Carter, every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for the Mindset Makeover, What's Possible. Get ready to become present, clear, and unstuck, and start living fully, led by your heart. While you listen and feel this transformation through vibration of word, sound, and song, you'll open up to what's possible and experience your shift.
People are always looking to invest in a good opportunity. So what if you could invest in the future of kids, like a stock? Not the kind of stock that's about making money, but a stock for social change, called Better Futures. With your investment, it helps students like me go to college. My name is Charles, and I'm your dividend.
Invest in better futures with UNCF. Visit uncf.org/invest. A mind is a terrible thing to waste, but a wonderful thing to invest in. Brought to you by UNCF and the Ad Council.
Hey everybody, welcome back. So if Shefali, if you could bear with me for 1 second, I want to give an example of how thoughts can also be incredibly healing. in changing a situation in their life. And I'm gonna, I worked with children who have had difficulties, especially behavioral difficulties, all over the world, and parents who have had to work with them. And at one time, one of the stories that I've written about, I was doing an event in Tarrytown, New York, and a parent came and she was waiting for this, for my talk to be over. And when she pulled me aside, she's a Hispanic. She is a Hispanic woman. She has a 15-year-old son, I guess now probably by now he's 17 or 18. And she was very upset because the school didn't want to let him in. I don't know what school district he was part of. It was, this was not a mom who was local. She literally came to the event to hear me. So, but the school didn't want to let him in because he said something to his teacher about hearing voices. So they sent him to a hospital and they wanted to put him on medication. And it was really an interesting situation, and I can go on about it probably for way too long, but he went for a psychiatric evaluation. They wanted him to go onto a medication they call risperidol. And sometimes that's very appropriate for people who are really, having hallucinations, especially when they're hallucinations that may be telling them to do something. So schools have to be very careful, especially nowadays with some events that have occurred within schools. They have to really make sure that everybody is safe. So the school really was trying to do their part. What wound up coming out of our conversation, though, was this young boy shared with me, and I want you to I wish I could give you a picture of what he looked like, because when they first sat down with me, Mom talked to me, the boy sat there with his head face down at the table. Very, his shoulders were sort of slumped over, and he really wouldn't make eye contact. He was very disconnected and feeling, I want to say, ashamed is what his body language was really feeling like at that time. And what sort of happened was I asked him if I can talk directly to him, and he was willing to do that, but he still wasn't really looking directly at me. And I asked him to tell me a little bit about what was going on with him. And what he wound up telling me was he could be sitting in school and his grandfather will say to him, you're going to do fine on the test. You're going to be okay today or whatever. But it was his grandfather's voice that he would be hearing. And I think at the time his teacher asked him, what was going on. And he was somewhat distracted because he seemed like he was a bit lost, and he was paying attention to what he was hearing, and it's new for him. He wasn't familiar with any type of experience like that, and he didn't want to tell anybody about it because he really thought his mother would think that he was crazy. So he just said that he heard voices, and that led to one reaction to another reaction to another reaction. And while we talked about it, his mom started to cry. And she said, "Oh my God, I've been praying," partly in Spanish, which I don't want to insult anybody by trying to imitate, so I'm not going to. But she basically said, "Oh my God, I've been praying that my father would give me a sign that that he's with us." And I'm in the kitchen, and sometimes I think that he's there. And we went into this whole conversation about her beliefs, and he lit up when her reaction was relieved. Almost, and joyful that he was saying he heard from Grandpa. He called him Papa, but Grandpa, and the whole energy of the both of them shifted. And I said, I think you should go back to the doctor and say, here's what sort of came up in a conversation. This is what I was hearing, so that there's clarity for them, and be honest with them about what was going on. And they may have a different recommendation for you guys, and let the school know as well. So Mom let the child know that that this is something that she believes. And when she was joyful and she hugged him and she said, "Oh my God, that's wonderful," he sat up. He looked like a different young man. So when you talk about how your thoughts can impact who you are and what happens in the course of your life, like that was probably about, anywhere from a 45 to an hour long, 45 minutes to an hour long conversation, maybe a little bit more. And that changed both of their relationships and his perception of himself. And it was all about thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was so powerful for him to hear his mother validate and believe that, yes, he was hearing these voices, and how happy she was that it wasn't a bad thing, and he wasn't crazy, because that's what he was probably thinking. And he was probably sitting in fear. That's why he didn't want to talk about it, because people would judge him, right, for having those experiences. Yeah.
Absolutely. So he basically sort of, the teacher was like, "What's going on with you? Where are you?" And he sort of said, "I was hearing voices," was his initial response. And then he regretted those words coming out of his mouth. And then that led to a whole bunch of actions.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that he actually said, "Well, my grandfather talks to me all the time and I can't get it, like I hear him a lot and I don't want to tell anybody because, like my mom's going to think I'm crazy and I don't want anyone to think I'm evil or that I'm, and he hears what people say about people who hear voices. So,
Well,
you know,
what's funny, Donna, is that even in my life, my parents, once I started on the spiritual path and so on, my dad had told me that, if anything ever happens to you, do not go to the hospital. Do not tell the doctors anything because they're just going to give you medication and, put you in the mental hospital. So do not. And it's like, okay, so it kind of like freaked me out, right? And so
hmm
I wouldn't share with anybody anything because it's like, I don't want to go to I don't want that to happen to me. So now it's like he was trying to do it to protect me. I get that, but it was also, made me stop. I think from having more experiences or thinking that the experiences were okay. It's like I don't need to. It's just weird now when I think about it that how strongly he was saying that, but he'd never shared any experience with me, so I never thought he believed in that kind of stuff. So it's like, huh. So
yeah.
in my family, in my culture anyways, we're told to keep it secret, right? Keep it secret, keep it private, don't
Absolutely,
talk
us,
about it.
us, us too. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even other things that you hear people say. Like my grandfather said, "Well, I'd go to the doctor, but you know what happens? They cut you open, and then that's it. You die." Because once you
Yeah,
get into the hospital, like there's no way out. You go, okay,
yeah,
well, and then that's what happened for him. You know what I mean? It's just sort of so. But then you look at the people who are struggling with illness, and they go, okay, so they tap into meditation, and they change, they tap into their body, and they go. Not saying that it makes it easier, but they believe that they can get through this and get to the other side, and their process in dealing with an illness or a recovery of some sort is very different, and that's part of the meaning and the expectation and the thoughts that they connect with the experience.
so a lot of what we're doing is kind of like self-fulfilling prophecies, right? The words we're using, the thoughts we're thinking, they are creating our reality, aren't they?
Absolutely. They can impact everything you choose and create and how changing them can literally and lead to greater outcomes. And that's just, we we sometimes kid ourselves with believing that we get into this state very often in our lives where we're reacting to everything, and we may believe that we don't have control over our own reality, when the truth is that if we're willing to be conscious about our thoughts and what we give meaning to and what meanings we give to situations and things, we can completely create our reality and do it deliberately and do it in a way that will feel a lot more fulfilling and have more
So,
ease, because when you view something as more of, when you could take a situation and view it as information or a gift versus a trauma or or
hmm
something, it changes your whole experience.
yeah. So, at the beginning, I think we were talking a little bit about beliefs. We didn't go deep into it, but wow, we have so many beliefs about the words that we use, the thoughts that we have, what we're willing to say or not say because of something that we believed, something that we've been told. And so it's amazing to see, and I like the word amazing. It's amazing to see how these beliefs are impacting our creation, our future, our reality, and sometimes we're not even aware of it. So can you talk a little bit, I know we only have a few minutes before break, but can you talk a little bit about beliefs and how they are impacting us and how we can start to shift and change those?
Absolutely. It's really funny because beliefs are something that we often, that impact our lives so tremendously, we often don't even think about them. And we start to think about, so this is what we said before, is sort of like we write down. I would say to somebody, if we were doing a workshop right now, make a few categories. Write down all your beliefs on relationship, on healing, on money, on learning, on death, on teaching, or anything that's important to you, right? As far as that goes. And after you write them down, you look at them, and ask yourself, is the belief true? But one of the things that is really important to recognize is the beliefs that we grow up believing, very often towards the middle of our lives, we recognize do not serve us anymore. For
Mm-hmm.
whatever that reason is, we get to a stage in our life where we look back and we go, that doesn't work for me anymore. And we start to really question our beliefs and say, okay, so what I would love to say is, what if you actually asked yourself if your beliefs were true, and if you really knew what they are, well, is that true for me? Is that serving me? Is that belief actually serving me? Is there a different belief that would actually help propel me to where I would like to go? I look at people like, I often see situations related to relationships, let's say, or illness, like I said before, where beliefs actually impact their ability to be successful. The difference between somebody who says fighting this disease is hard and it's destroying my body versus somebody who's made a decision and a conclusion that, that people fight this disease all the time and come out the other side better. So I'm going to choose to see my body as healthy and know that the end result is going to be something beautiful and figure out what I need to do to get there. And then they start to ask questions. There's a very different belief system in those two things. So getting to know them, your beliefs will impact all of your choices. I know that doesn't really answer your question about talking more about beliefs, but I think time offers perspective, and effective questions will help you really get. I always tell people, don't take my beliefs as truth, right? Or don't even take your beliefs as true, because you've learned them from other people just by people repeating them over time. So it would be great to actually write down the ones that you're aware of and ask yourself, is this true for me? And maybe it was true for you 5 years ago. Is it still true for you? Because you really get to choose your beliefs. Mm-hmm. Right?
And that's the thing. Like, why do we, why can't we choose, or why shouldn't we choose more empowering beliefs? Beliefs that are going to serve us instead of these long-standing beliefs that are not serving us. And we know they're not serving us because we're looking at our life and we're not where we want to be, right? We're not living the life that we want. So obviously there are some beliefs in the way that are preventing us from really creating our life. And sometimes, they are self-imposed. Absolutely. Sometimes they're cultural. Sometimes they're generational, right? But we have the choice and the opportunity to shift those and change those in any moment.
Yeah, yes, we do, and we can do that by asking questions, and that is one of the. So when I'm doing a course and I'm working with somebody, I literally say, what outcomes are my beliefs creating? What does this belief help me to feel good? Will it help me in my success to accomplish this goal? Is it real? Is it true for me? And if so, and is it true? Then I even ask, and I got this from Wayne Dyer. Then I even ask, I'll give you what I ask after the messages.
Yes, we'll be right back here on Living with Moxie on OMTimes Radio in just a few moments.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Hello, I'm Miriam Knight of New Consciousness Review, inviting you to my new show where I interview the rising stars of the conscious awakening. We'll explore the many faces of consciousness in action and intriguing perspectives on life, the universe, and everything in between. Join us each Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern on the Rising Stars Show.
Want to know some fun facts about colonoscopies? Colon cancer is 90% preventable. A colonoscopy can detect and prevent colon cancer in one fell swoop. But here's a not-so-fun fact. Lots of people are so uncomfortable even talking about a colonoscopy that they never get one. If you're 50 or 45 for African Americans, get screened now. Maybe even earlier if you have a family history. To schedule a screening today, visit StopColonCancerNow.com.
and we are back on Living with Moxie here on OMTimes Radio. And Donna was going to tell us something really profound right before break. Donna, what was it?
Well, going back to what beliefs, one of the things that I say to people is, what beliefs do you have around an area of your life where you're stuck? Because sometimes that's the easiest place to start. And very often those are around the areas that we learn in psychology that we call the toxic areas that are difficult in families. Those areas that most people don't talk about. Which is usually related to things like religion or spiritual beliefs, marriage and family, sex and money, and illness and health, and those types of really significant areas as far as that goes. But what we realize is a lot of beliefs are passed down, and we don't actually even think about them until we're older. We just take them for granted and believe them to be true. So, so when I once wrote about my mentor who was a school psychologist, and I asked her once, I said to her, I asked her if she would participate in something I was doing that was really related to family therapy stuff and why she would have chosen her career, and to interview people about their families. And she basically kind of laughed, and I said, what made you go to college and choose to be a school psychologist? And she laughed hysterical, and she said to me, I don't think I ever thought about what I was going to do because I was told that I'm Jewish and I have to go to college. Like I don't remember ever making a conscious choice, and a school psychologist was a female thing that I could do. It was more related to what was acceptable, but it was also what was expected, and it was a belief. It's just what she did. She didn't question it, and it was hysterical that day to see. Here she was close to her retirement, and she thought about it for the first time, and she said, I don't really think I've ever thought about should I or shouldn't I, or what do I want? Like, those were things that never really went into her mind as far as that goes. But one of the things Wayne Dyer said is, ask yourself, is this belief working for me? And if it's is it true for me? And if it's true for me, like, can I lose weight? Someone will say, I've tried everything and I can't lose weight. Is that actually true? Do you believe it? Yes. Do you believe it 100% of the time? Is it working for you? Is it working for you 80% of the time, 90% of the time, 100% of the time? If it's not working for you, you can choose to let it go and figure out what the belief is that will, because there's no reason to hold on to a belief that isn't working for you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. And that's what, and that is what is so empowering, is that is within our reach for all of us. We can all do that. We can look at our belief and ask those questions. Is it working for me? Is it true for me? Is it, by having this belief, am I going towards my goal, towards my outcome? Yes or no, right? It's a simple question. And then looking at it and then saying, okay, so it's not. So, what else? What other belief can I have that will empower me, that will take me to my goal? And is that really a necessity? Do we need to put in another belief?
That's a really great question. You might just need to eliminate. You might just need to eliminate the one that's limiting you. What I found in my experience, but that does, don't take my experience just as the truth, is that usually you have a limiting belief that's in exact conflict with what it is that you're trying to reach. So if you're telling yourself you can't reach it, then replacing it with something that tells you that you can would be a really great thing to do. So I usually say that there is a replacement. That would be, there's a replacement of a belief or an exchange of a belief in that process, at least from what I've seen. At a very minimum, if it's choosing to let go of a belief that is completely blocking you from being able to be happy, from being able to achieve success or get to the next spot in your life, whatever that is, and keeping you stuck. And again, where those places are. If there's something you've been trying to do for a period of time, and yet you're always ending up with the result of, I just can't get there.
I agree.
That's
and so Donna, one thing I want to bring up really quickly is about realistic goals, realistic beliefs. For example, this is now the end of July almost, right? And if I want to say that, okay, I want to have $1 million by the end of this year, let's be realistic. If I'm not making 100,000, how am I going to suddenly in 5 months make $1 million, right? So I think sometimes a lot of people, they have a hard time with setting goals, is because they make them too big, right? And in a more general time frame. So it's like, I know we talked about this too, about having specific measurable goals. And but I think we need to be realistic sometimes as to what we're looking for, and when we think we can have it, like in what time frame. So I can't. I mean, I don't need to lose 50 pounds, but if I wanted to lose 30 pounds by the end of December, I could do that. That's doable. But if I said I want to lose 50 pounds, I don't know. It's like, am I willing to change my diet? Am I willing to exercise? Like, what am I willing to do, right? To get there. So it's not just about
Well,
the
I guess
words and thoughts, right?
there's some part to that I agree with, and some part that I have a little bit of a different perspective on. Doesn't make it either right or wrong, though. First of all, so I think of Jack Canfield, who says, one point he said, I want to make my first million this year, or whatever that was, and he literally wrote himself a check for $1 million, and he
Hmm.
pasted it on his ceiling,
Yeah. So
and
he saw it
that
every day.
so he could see it every day, and he
Yeah,
couldn't even
exactly.
fathom how he was going to make $1 million.
True.
You know what I'm saying? So, but and what wound up happening is, well, what if I put this book together, and then how do I get people to pay attention to it? And then he ran into somebody one day who was in a store, and, and he talked about how all these things started to connect, but it was all because he put that goal there, and it was on the
Yeah.
forefront of his mind, or he wouldn't have even thought, he said, it would be great if I could find someone who could help me with publicity. And then sometime in the next 3 months later, when he hadn't even thought about it, he saw a way to get publicity, and it hit him. He remembered the question that he asked months earlier, and he said, holy cow. And he grabbed it and he went with it, and he didn't make $1 million that year, but he made like 950,000.
Yeah,
So
really close.
really close. He was really close. So truth, does it have to be realistic? I always believe that once you've decided that this is realistic for you, then you're underestimating your target. I would reach a little bit more than you believe is possible for you, because most people do not have an honest picture of what they can truly accomplish. So there's a piece of you that says, and I say to people anyway, you think that you could do this? Reach one step further that feels out of your reach then. At least go a little bit higher, because that is most likely doable, and it will get you at least to where you know you could go, and then maybe even more. So, and when you say what's realistic, the truth is that gets connected to, well, do you really want it or not? Am I going to exercise every day? I don't know. How does the physical activity feel? How important is that in your list of goals? So there's some things that are there, and sometimes that's connected to the willingness to sit. You want to know when I really want to reach a target, what I do? I make myself really darn uncomfortable, because in the discomfort of where you are, it becomes my energy to launch me forward. When I'm being honest about the things that aren't working for me, and I go, you know what? I've had it with that. I can
Yeah.
propel myself forward. But if I'm not willing to look at the pieces that aren't working, I don't have the drive to necessarily change something that feels like I can live with it.
Yeah, so what are we living with and what are we tolerating? And two or three important pieces that you just mentioned, Donna, was about, first of all, writing that goal, right? And then the second part you mentioned, was about asking questions. So write that goal, see it every day, and continue to ask questions about how you can get there, right? Or like, what would it take to get there? What would it take to do this and that as you're going along? You're not going to have all the steps at the beginning, right? And
Right.
then how uncomfortable are you
See it
willing
every
to get?
day.
Yeah.
See it every day, twice a day. I say to people, read it in the morning, read it at night. Don't let that
Hmm.
be the beginning and the end of your day. And know that in between, all the steps you're taking are actions towards it.
Yeah. Actions towards it. Yeah. And that's the thing. I don't think a lot of people are not putting the two together. They're doing certain tasks and certain jobs and certain things during the day, but are they tied to that goal, that outcome that they want?
Well, that's why I love that question where I tap into the future. So what do I want my life to be in 10 years?
Hmm.
So I use the word billions because you know me, I shoot for way
Yeah.
more than most people will shoot for, right? We're going to have Moxie Media House. We're going to have multiple venues. We're going to, like, we know that we have a huge target here of what we're going to reach. But because I also want to have a significant impact on being a contribution to people all over the world, and I have a connection to how I'd like to use that to create everything. And the reason why I mention that is so then I ask myself, well, somebody who's going to accomplish all of that 10 years from now is going to be doing what and saying what today?
Hmm.
What actions will I be taking? What words will I be using? What steps, what choices, what beliefs will I have? And I have to start choosing that right now. And then I start listing and writing down those actions. And those become my daily actions, whatever they are. So whatever they are in alignment to your goal. If your goal is a weight loss goal and you're looking for weight loss or health, then you write down the actions that will get you to, you're not going to say, I just want to be thin. You're going to put a weight there. You're going to put a health target there. You're going to put whatever it is that you're going to get really clear on it. And then you're going to write down the 20 actions that you can take that will get you to that goal by the date that you want to get there. And then you just make that your massive action plan.
And that's what it's about. It's about taking massive action. And, if you're a person who is living with Moxie, who has Moxie, it really is about taking massive action. It's about being uncomfortable, looking at your life, looking at every parts of your life and seeing what is working and what is not working without judgment, right? And that's what I want to say straight out. Even when you're looking at stuff and it's not working, look at it without judgment. Just look at it as if, okay, this is not working for me. What will work for me? And start to ask questions, and then start to, what's the word I'm looking for? Change directions. I can't.
Yeah, it's fluid. You don't need to judge yourself. You just make an adjustment.
Make an adjustment, and then keep going. And that's the thing. I think people stop. People stop doing because they think, oh, I've made a mistake, or I messed up here. Oh, I didn't do this right, and then they stop. No. Course correct. That's the word I was looking for. Course correct, and then keep going. And looking at your goal every day, like Donna said, morning and night. However many times you need to look at it to get it done, right? To get you moving and stay motivated.
Yep, and we're coming to the end, so I really want to just make sure that we say thank you to everybody who joins us, and we'd love to hear from you. So we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, and we're Living with Moxie. And it was thank you so much for being here, because we are who we are because of you. Have a great week, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. And next week we'll be back here on Living with Moxie. We're talking about balancing work, relationships, and health. So join us.